We've moved about 10 miles now from Three Chimneys Farm to the famous Calumet Farm, home of many champions. We've come here to see Affirmed, the 11th Triple Crown champion. But the horse being led out right now is Alydar. Never won the Triple Crown, but he's the only horse ever to have finished second in the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, and he certainly belongs in our story because most people think that he would have been a Triple Crown champion had it not been for that one other horse, Affirmed. And there he is. It's appropriate that Affirmed and Alydar should be in adjacent stalls here at Calumet Farm, as they are, because they certainly were always close together on the racetrack. The margins in the Classics were a length and a half in the Derby, a neck in the Preakness, and a head in the Belmont. You don't get any closer than that. In his first stakes race, the Youthful at Belmont in June, Affirmed was a winner. It was hardly noticed that another colt, Alydar, finished fifth that day. There was much more to come. Alydar beat Affirmed in the Great American, but Affirmed came back to take the Hopeful at Saratoga in August. They next met in the Futurity at Belmont in September. The rivalry was in full flower now. The two colts battled it out all the way. Each had the lead in the stretch at one point, and when they came to the wire, it was anyone's guess. The photo showed that it was Affirmed. They were back at the beautiful Belmont plant for the Champagne on October 15th. It was the first time they had run as far as a mile, and Affirmed was a very slight favorite, but this time it would be Alydar storming from the outside in the final 16th who would win the day. They would meet once more that year. Steve Cawthon, the sensational teenager, was Affirmed's regular rider now. The Laurel Futurity was another classic. Alydar the favorite this time, but Affirmed charging on the outside, winning the 2-year-old championship for the Wolfsons. Their next meeting wouldn't happen until the Kentucky Derby of 1978. They started their 3-year-old campaigns a continent apart. Affirmed was in California at Santa Anita. He won a sprint in the San Felipe Handicap, then prepared for the Santa Anita Derby. Cawthon had been set down for a riding infraction, so Lafitte Pincay was at the reins in this race to establish the West Coast Challenger for Kentucky. As was his habit, he took the lead from the start. It was an easy race for the son of exclusive native. Pincay gave him the whip through the stretch, though, to keep his mind on his business. He won it by 8 lengths. Meanwhile, Alydar had spent the winter in Florida at the magnificent old Hialeah course with trainer John Veach, who couldn't wait for his colt to get revenge on the West Coast star trained by Las Barrera. Alydar was carefully prepared for the Flamingo Stakes, and he didn't disappoint. Alydar ran away from his field as Affirmed did in California. The build-up to the Derby was the most dramatic in years, with not one favorite now, but 2. On the way to Louisville, Alydar won the Bluegrass at Keeneland by 13 lengths. The usual immense crowd was there, including Affirmed's owners. Affirmed was well placed throughout the race, second at the quarter, third at the half, and 6 furlong marks. Alydar started slowly, but still 8th of the 11 starters at 3/4 of a mile. But Sensitive Prince took the early lead and set a tremendous early pace, but neither Affirmed or Alydar were biting. Affirmed moved up on the turn, but Alydar this time waited too long to make his bid. Believe It took the lead briefly, but Affirmed took over in the stretch. Dave Johnson called the finish. And so the first big one of the big 3 was chalked up for Affirmed. Afterward, I asked Cawthon for his reaction. It was the week of the kid's 18th birthday.
It's a tremendous feeling. I didn't realize how good it feels until after the race, but it's something else.
Affirmed had the upper hand for sure as they arrived in Baltimore for the Preakness. The colts were so closely matched, but it was beginning to look like Affirmed had the extra edge every time now. The Wolfsons were there to see Affirmed, but Alydar's owners, Lucille and Admiral Gene Markey, were wheelchair-bound at their Calumet Farm home watching on television. Affirmed let the long-shot Track Reward lead briefly, but then took over and led after a half mile. Alydar was closer this time, about 5 lengths off the lead and then moving up, well-placed for his stretch drive. That's Alydar in the Devil Red Silks on the outside, moving up. The crowd sensed what was coming, and it was just what they had hoped for. Affirmed and Alydar. Those two on the front. Flying down the stretch now, writing the story of racing's greatest rivalry with their footprints. stride for stride, nearly head for head. And at the end, it was affirmed again by a neck. Could they do it yet again in the Belmont? There seemed no reason not to. There were 3 other horses in the race, but they were merely spear carriers on this day, extras to serve as background for the stars. Caution. John Beach had a new set of tactics for this race. He wouldn't let Affirmed get away to loaf on the lead, then pour it on in the stretch. This time, jockey George Velasquez would push the colt in the pink silk all the way, make him work for every inch. And at the end, well, who knows? Now he moved right up with Affirmed. It appeared that one of them had to give, as Affirmed stamped up the tempo. Alydar was right with him, though, and the crowd was so loud that it was difficult to hear the call as they raced in front of the stands.
The two are heads apart, and Alydar's got a lead. Alydar put ahead in front, right in the middle of the stretch. It's Alydar and Affirmed battling back along the inside. We'll test these two to the wire. Affirmed under a left-hand whip. Alydar on the outside driving. Affirmed and Alydar heads apart. Affirmed's got a nose in front as they come onto the wire.
And Affirmed had won the Triple Crown by a total margin of less than 2 lengths. Alydar had become the first horse in history to finish second in all 3 of the classes.